as soon as you can, was just kicking it around my man. It's the spoiled kings, better than diamond rings. Football, Wildcat football, Wildcat football, Wildcat football, Wildcat football.
Welcome to the Married with Picks podcast, season 3, episode 18, week 18. Final week of the season. Tear.
I can't believe the season's over. Almost. At least the regular season's over, and we'll get to start the playoffs next week. But we've had a crazy couple of days here in the NFL. Unprecedented with the major injury in the Buffalo Bengals game. But into week 18 we go.
Okay. Good. All right. So obviously a difficult week to bet because there are some teams that are playing for something, other teams that are in the playoffs and not playing for anything, and then obviously teams that are well out of playoff contention. So we'll try to mention these things as we go through the games. First game on the list is the Saturday. Is this afternoon? Yeah, Saturday afternoon game. Kansas City Chiefs at the Las Vegas Raiders. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay.
The boys are trying to sneak in the room.
So Kansas City is favored by 9.5 points. They need to win this game in order to get the number 1 seed in the AFC. So it's a big spread. Generally, the Chiefs don't cover these spreads. We saw Jarrett Stidham put up quite the performance last week against the San Francisco defense. He had 365 passing yards and 3 touchdowns.
Devontae Adams had a great day.
Can he repeat?
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're throwing at Devontae Adams, you're going to give him the opportunity to catch the ball. I think he can repeat that, especially against Kansas City. It's not like they're ironclad defense.
Yeah. So, I mean, I could see the Raiders trying to play spoiler here. Maybe Josh McDaniels trying to prove a point with the quarterback situation. Yeah,
it's a division game, right? The Raiders are at home.
So, yeah. I mean,
I think points.
You got to take the points.
I'm with you
on this one. All right. So, next game is the Tennessee Titans at the Jacksonville Jaguars. Open at -5.5. It's up to -6.5 in favor of the Jaguars. So, this game is winner is in, loser is out. These teams played back in week 14. The Jags won that game 36-22. It was kind of a weird game. This was Ryan Tannehill was still in at quarterback. Titans had 3 or 4 turnovers in the red zone. Derrick Henry fumbled the ball a couple times. He had over 100 rushing yards in the first half and then was kind of phased out of the game because of the score. The Titans will be starting Josh Dobbs. I think that's his first name.
It's Josh Dobbs, yeah. Joshua.
Who showed himself to be a little more capable than Malik Willis. So they're going to roll with him in this one. Mike Vrabel has a fairly good record as an underdog. I think he will have the guys ready. I don't know if they can pull out the victory, but I would take them with the points at least.
Well, it's true the winner is in, but Jacksonville does have a path into the playoffs if they lose this game. If they lose to the Titans will obviously be the division winner and they'll get in. But Jacksonville would then need losses from Miami, New England, and Pittsburgh, the other 3 teams who are in contention for that 7th and final playoff spot in the AFC. So Jacksonville could back in, but it's highly unlikely. They'd have to have, obviously those 3 teams lose if they lose as well to get in. Tennessee, right, they've lost 6 in a row. And 7 out of their last 9. So it's been tough sledding for Tennessee. I know we watched the Tennessee game last week and Joshua Dobbs looked very efficient and that he could get the job done. But I feel like this is where, Doug Peterson is building the culture. We've seen Jacksonville progress throughout the season. They look like they're a team that deserves to get into playoffs, whether they will or not. That's to be determined. But I believe their path into the playoffs is going to happen with a victory. And the problem is with Joshua Dobbs is Jacksonville has the ability to put 30 points up on the board. And that's what I think they'll do in this game. I don't think Joshua Dobbs can put more than 21 up on the board.
Well, no. And that's what happened in the first matchup. If the game gets away from Tennessee early, then it's trouble.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like this game could be tight coming into halftime, maybe a 3-point game.
Well, that's best case for Tennessee.
And then Jacksonville's going to pull apart Tennessee's secondary in the second half. I like Jacksonville. I'll take the points or give up the points at 6.5 now. I really like it if it's under 7.
All right, so we're on opposite sides of that one. All right.
You want to bet on that one?
No, and I didn't have the greatest week last week, but I did win my bet against you, and I was right about Teddy Bridgewater. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, you got hurt on an interception to the house.
To the house. I did bet that too.
Nice.
All right, so next game is the New York Jets at the Miami Dolphins.
So that's the extent of the Saturday slate, right? There's only 2 games.
Yes.
Okay.
So these are Sunday 1 p.m.
All right, Sunday 1 p.m.
And I printed this out last night, so this line might have changed. So we have the New York Jets, Miami Dolphins. I have it at -2 in favor of the Dolphins, but there was news today. So Bridgewater is questionable. It sounds like it is going to be Skylar Thompson starting at quarterback for the Dolphins. And Mike White did play last week, but I guess he re-aggravated the rib injury because he was limited at practice. I think he's only questionable for the game, but they did announce
he's out.
That Joe Flacco is going to get the start in this one. Yeah. So we have Joe Flacco versus Skylar Thompson. And I really don't want anything to do with this game. And it is currently -3 in favor of the Dolphins.
I see a couple spots here. I looked it up when you said, it could have changed. There's a couple 3.5s. I see a 4.5, but that's kind of like the outlier of the 4.5 for sure.
So, and the Jets are out of playoff contention. Miami, if they win and Patriots lose to the Bills, then they are in the playoffs. So they need the win. Neither of these quarterbacks does much for me. Joe Flacco is a veteran. He has the experience. Skylar Thompson does not. But the Dolphins need the win. Jets are just playing spoiler at this point.
Yeah, so it looks like, the Jets being knocked out of the playoffs probably wouldn't show up for this game, but they're coming down to Miami, right? It's a nice warm weather game. Joe Flacco's 37 years old. He's on 1-year deals the last couple of years. This probably is his last year, I would think. So he could be looking at this as his last hurrah. Given the fact that Miami's going with Skylar Thompson and he has no NFL experience pretty much whatsoever, and Flacco is the wily veteran, I could see him, throwing. He could look ugly for 3.5 quarters and then go down the field 3 times in a row and put 21 points up on the board. So with Garrett Wilson and Corey Davis and Elijah Moore's out there, I think he's got enough. Especially with Tyler Conklin at tight end, I think he's got enough weapons that he can go get the Dolphins. And the Dolphins, listen, the Jets are 0-3 against the spread in the last 3, but the Dolphins are playing horrible. They've lost, 5 in a row? And, they're on their 3rd quarterback after Teddy Bridgewater went down last week. And there's no sight of Tua coming out of this concussion protocol. So I like the Jets.
I just question, I guess, the rest of the team's motivation. Like if it was Mike White, I feel like they like Mike White. They might, play for him. Like you got Joe Flacco rolling out there. Like how much do you really care?
No, I think that he can give him the old, let's get one for the Gipper kind of speech and get him to play for one game. If this was the kid, the other kid that they have, what's his name?
Zach Wilson.
Yeah, if it was Zach Wilson, then I think you can make that argument that the team probably wouldn't get behind him and wouldn't show up. But I think, give one for the Gipper the last game for Joe Flacco. He could kind of give a razzling speech there in the locker room and get the boys fired up to play. You got a lot of young talent here on the Jets, and Sala, I think, will get the boys hitting and playing.
I think it's Sala, but okay. All right.
You said the last one and it sounded like crazy, so I didn't even say anything.
Who?
How do you pronounce it? Pronounce his name.
Robert Saleh?
Salah. I think you said last week. You're like, Salah. I was like, what the hell? We're going to roll it back.
I'm going to do
Salah.
it. I'm going to throw the challenge flag on that one.
We'll look it up after this one.
Okay. All right. Let's move on. Next game is the Cleveland Browns at the Pittsburgh Steelers. Browns are out of playoff contention. Steelers need a win and losses by the Dolphins and the Patriots to make the playoffs. These teams played back in week 3. The Browns won that matchup 29-17. That was Jacoby Brissett versus Mitch Trubisky. So I don't know how much we can take from that. I don't really want to take Pittsburgh as a favorite here. So I think I'd have to take the points and take the Browns.
I like Pittsburgh winning by 3 points. It's 2.5 right now from our sheet. I don't know that it's going to be 2.5 when the game kicks off because the money's going to come in on the home team. Let me check this real quick.
The money is on the Browns right now.
Yeah, well, if the game goes up over 3.5, if it stays at 3, I go Jets. Anything under 3, I take Steelers. Sorry, anything if the line does pop up over 3 for Cleveland getting 3.5 to more, I'd take Cleveland.
I don't know. I had the misfortune of watching the Steelers game this past week, and I was on the Steelers, and it was painful to watch them, but they did pull that one out. So I don't have much confidence. All right. So next game is the Houston Texans at the Indianapolis Colts. Are those the two teams with the worst records?
No, but Houston does lock up the number 1 pick overall in the draft if they lose this game.
So both teams far out of playoff contention. Sam Ehlinger is going to start for the Colts. I feel like the Texans checked out last week with that loss against the Jags. So I got nothing on this one. I wouldn't waste my money on it.
Believe it or not, the Broncos, the Texans, these are all teams that will have a higher draft pick than the Colts. As bad as the Colts have been this season, Denver still has a worse record. Houston, like we just said, Chicago Bears, and the Arizona Cardinals.
Wow.
So there's 4 teams with worse records than the Colts. Is surprising.
Huh. All right.
I don't like I said. I would take the Colts if you put a gun to my head.
All right, so next game is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the Atlanta Falcons. Open at -7 in favor of Atlanta. It's down to -4.5. Tampa Bay is locked into the 4 seed. They cannot move, and Falcons obviously out. So Todd Bowles did say that they were going to play their starters. I guess the question is how long. With the injuries that the Bucs have faced over the course of the season, I don't know if that's a smart idea. So I don't know, how much you can put on this, not knowing how long Brady and company are going to play. But I think you got to take the points. Tom Brady, it only took him 18 weeks, Steve, but they did it. Came back to life last week.
I had him.
Yeah, well.
You didn't. I think you were against them, weren't you? You didn't like him at all. You were definitely against them. But anyway, on this game, Atlanta's giving up 4.5. So you like Tampa Bay in this situation? Because I don't think they're going to stick in there.
Atlanta's favored.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
are you going to take Atlanta Falcons as a 4.5 point favorite?
I am. I'm going to take Atlanta all day in this game. Tom Brady's not going to stay in there for more than a drive. I don't know why Todd Bowles is saying they're going to start. Like if the starters do begin the game, they shouldn't be in there for more than 1 series.
I think,
and then you're going to have a young kid and quarterback for Atlanta running all over the field with Algier, the running back. I definitely think Atlanta, they could go down early, but once those starters come out, Atlanta's going to, listen. You've seen how bad Tampa's looked. Once you take Brady and the rest of them out, what do you think's behind them? I'd take Atlanta. They're a name.
I mean, I wouldn't bet it. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, I don't love this game in a little bit, But.
All right. So next game is Carolina Panthers at the New Orleans Saints. 2 teams that are out of playoff contention. Saints are favored by 3.5. Sam Darnold's been playing well. I mean, I'm sure he's definitely playing for his future at this point. Saints proved last week that they can put up some points. So I would take the points on this one and go with the Panthers.
I would do the same. Sam Darnold. Let's go.
All right. Next game is the New England Patriots at the Buffalo Bills. So the line is -7. The Patriots are in with a win or Dolphins, Steelers, and Titans loss. Buffalo Bills would get the number 1 seed with the win if the Chiefs lost, but the Chiefs will be playing the day before, so they'll know how that's going to play out. So these teams played back in week 13. Bills won 24-10. Patriots only have one win against the Bills in the Josh Allen and post Tom Brady era. That's the last 6 games. So I guess the question is the motivation. Are they going to play this for Damir Hamlin? So I guess the only question is, should the line be bigger?
Well, this is a weird game all in when you consider the Hamlin situation. I mean, these guys aren't, you got, let's be honest. We got to break this down. Like, these guys have not been in a mental state to play football. They haven't practiced. They haven't touched a football, right? Probably until Thursday at the earliest. Maybe some of them haven't even touched it until Friday. And there's some question whether they were going to play this game in the first place. But I don't think that's a strong consideration that they're going to forfeit this game to the Patriots. But to your point, this line looks light. And I think those things that we're talking about, the side effects from going through the traumatic situation.
No, but see,
night.
I would see it the other way, that they're playing it for him, so they're going to be all jacked up. And
well, it could go either way, right?
Yeah, but and I always have trouble with this. If I think the line is too low, like if I think the line should be -9 or -10 in favor of Buffalo, what does that mean? That means I should take the Patriots?
If you think the line should be, well, if the line's telling you something, this is a scenario.
But what's
where
it telling me? Because I have trouble with this.
It's telling, like, you're saying the line should be higher, right?
Yes.
And the theory, if the line's been telling you something, is if you think the line is light or it should be higher, then you think Vegas knows something.
Right. So what does Vegas
is telling you to take the Patriots?
Okay, that's what I thought.
Because the show will be like 7. Bills only by 7. It should be 13.
Yeah, so I feel like all the money is going to be on Buffalo. So I feel like that means you should take the Patriots. Not to say the Patriots win.
It's another division game. I mean, this could be a tight game. Hey, Patriots win and they're in, right? So the scenario is they got the 7th seed, the final spot in the AFC. If they win, they're in. So they're going to bring it. I mean, they're not going to sit there and cry for Damar Hamlin. They're going to come in and play. The question is, I mean, could you really imagine a sweeter scene than for Buffalo fans than just totally annihilating the Patriots at home and having a big party and a celebration because, obviously Hamlin's doing a lot better as every day goes by. So kind of the pressure's off. They're going to play this game. It could be a big party. But I think when you expect that, and that's what a lot of the country is expecting, is that the Bills just are like happy and everything's great and they're going to go out there and roll. Listen, you got to prepare for the New England Patriots. The New England Patriots have been preparing all week for these guys. And they know that, with the crazy season that they've had, they win and they're in. That's as simple as that. They win and they're in. They're not thinking about, the Bengals, the Bills, or the Chiefs. Yeah. So I think that, Belichick's going to give them a little something from a defensive plan here. And, Josh Allen hasn't performed great against New England all the time.
Well, I think, did he roll his ankle or something in that partial game?
Yeah, something's up. He was questionable. He officially didn't practice on
just the
Thursday. So
yeah. So all right,
I'm taking the Patriots.
Okay, I think that's the right side. I'm gonna put it that way.
Yeah, and I like the Patriots here.
All right,
to just keep it in. Buffalo should win the game. New England will probably be out of the playoffs. Probably they're the least likable team that you wouldn't want to get in that 7th seed compared to Miami, Pittsburgh, and Jacksonville, but I digress. I would take the Patriots to cover at least.
All right. So the next game is the Baltimore Ravens at the Cincinnati Bengals. It's at -7.5 in favor of the Bengals. Now, this is the one that I don't fully understand, but because they canceled the Bengals-Bills game, the Bengals, I believe, by default now are the AFC North champions because they have a higher win percentage. So this game doesn't really mean anything at this point. But if the Bengals win and these teams play each other again in the playoffs, the site is going to be determined by a coin toss. Is that right?
No. If the Ravens win.
Okay.
Because then they would have an 11-6 record. Cincinnati would be 11-5 because they're missing that game against the Bills. So basically what the NFL is saying is that if the Bengals played that game against the Bills and lost, they would have a similar record, and Baltimore would win the tiebreaker.
Right. But if the Bengals had played the game, this game would have been for the division. But basically, Baltimore can't win the division now.
Well, if the Bengals would have finished that game on Monday night and won the game, this game would have no meaning.
Okay. But if they had lost,
they would be 12-4, 2 games above Baltimore. So even if they lost, they'd still finish ahead of Baltimore and win the division. But since they didn't play, they're short a game. So they'll theoretically, if Baltimore wins the game, they'll have the same amount of wins, but Baltimore will have one more loss, giving them a worse winning percentage, thus making Cincinnati the winner. So since they took that game away, the NFL is basically saying, well, there's theoretically a possibility if Baltimore beats Cincy that they could have finished as the division champs. So we'll flip a coin to see who will determine the site of the game if they play in the first round. So they would have to match up in the first round for that to matter.
Right. All right. But so, okay, Lamar Jackson is out. Tyler Huntley is questionable. So it sounds like Baltimore very well could be starting Anthony Brown. They played back in week 5. Ravens won that game 19-17. So I got to take the Bengals.
I mean, this is one of those games where I really can't tell you a strong reason to take Baltimore, just looking at what's going on. Other than, let's not forget the Bengals are affected by this entire, tragedy that happened on Monday night as well. At least a little bit of rusty. They've had a little bit of mental games, and I know Higgins has mentally suffered from this a little bit. It looks like, again, another one of these team games where it's like, okay, the line's probably going to go up past 7.5 where it is right now by the time it's kicked off. And even if it doesn't, I'm thinking a lot of the action is going to go on Cincinnati. They're more of a likable team. They're playing at home. I think with the whole story, they're in everybody's face. People will take the Bengals here, and it's probably a mistake. But I will tell you one reason why you should take the Baltimore Ravens. Because in their last 20 games as an underdog, they're 16-3-1 against the spread. And that's enough for me, regardless of who's quarterback here, because I like John Harbaugh. I think he's a great coach. I'm going to take Baltimore. Okay. It's like the obvious pick is the Bengals, and we all know when it's too obvious like this or looks obvious. I mean, what's obvious is the problem that the first 2 quarterbacks aren't playing, right? Mm-hmm. So, I think their defense is going to show up and keep it tight, especially if they go to the 3rd string quarterback. You got to assume you're going to get more than 7.5 points. So I'm going to go on the record as taking Baltimore. It's one of those week 18 crazy games.
Okay. All right. So next game is the Minnesota Vikings at the Chicago Bears. The line is at -7.5 in favor of the Vikings. The Vikings are pretty much locked into the number 3 seed unless they win and San Fran loses, then they would be the number 2 seed, but they don't have a shot at the number 1 seed at this point. Justin Fields is not going to play for the Bears. It will be Nate Peterman starting at quarterback. The only thing I know about Nate Peterman is that in one start for the Buffalo Bills, he threw 5 interceptions in one half of football. So I don't care if the Vikings don't have a lot to play for. In this game, I still like the Vikings there. Yeah,
it's a bad game. I mean, they're almost putting Peterman in here because they have a shot at the number 1 pick. If Houston wins and Chicago loses, they'll get the number 1 pick of the draft. I like Minnesota.
All right. Next game is the LA Rams at the Seattle Seahawks. This line is at -6. Seattle needs the win and a Green Bay loss to get the final spot in the playoffs. I don't think I have literally gotten the Seahawks right once this year. These teams did play a few weeks ago, and the Rams gave the Seahawks a fight. I think Seattle won that game by 1 point, and it was close. So my pick would be to take the points with the Rams, so that probably means take the Seahawks.
I'll take the Rams too. I like that. I mean, if it's a division game, it's going to be a tight game, and Baker Mayfield and Cam Akers are giving everybody all they can give. I'll take the Rams here.
All right. Next game is the New York Giants at the Philadelphia Eagles. The line is at -14 in favor of the Eagles. The Giants are locked in to the number 6 seed. Brian Daboll earlier in the week was being kind of coy about whether he was going to play his starters, but it sounds like he will rest some of them. So Tyrod Taylor would be the quarterback to start if Daniel Jones does not. Philadelphia is playing for the number 1 seed. They get that with a win or a Dallas loss and San Francisco loss. These teams played back in week 14. The Eagles won that game 48-22. I assume that Hurts is starting, but I don't know if that's a guarantee yet. So I don't know what you do with that either. I mean, obviously the Eagles have the motivation to play. They already smoked the Giants a couple weeks ago with their starters. So if they're going to play backups in this game, I think it's a pretty safe bet that Philly wins, but it is a big line. Do they take their foot off the gas? So, I mean, I can't bet it at 14.
Yeah, I would say take the Giants. I mean, Tyrod Taylor's a good veteran and he should keep it close. And Matt Breida's a heavy, hard-hitting running back that I think is going to give the Eagles, who are a little light up front, especially when you look at the linebackers, a little bit of fits. So,
is Lane Johnson? What's his status?
Lane Johnson is not playing. He is pushing off surgery until after the playoffs. So he's got a midsection injury, and he's going to play through the pain. So he's going to play in the playoffs, but not this week.
Okay.
So we all know that they don't have a good record when Lane Johnson doesn't play for the Eagles, and they've lost their last 2. He got injured late in the Cowboys game. That was a loss, but then the Saints obviously last week. So, I just think the Eagles will win this game and clinch the number 1 seed, but 14 points is a lot, even against the Giants backup. I'll take the New York Giants.
All right. Next game is the Arizona Cardinals at the San Francisco 49ers. Cardinals obviously out. San Francisco could get the number 1 seed with a win, but they would need the Eagles to lose. They will be playing at the same time. They get the number 2 seed with a win or a Minnesota loss, which is probably unlikely. David Blau will be starting again for the Cardinals. He played fairly well against the Falcons last week, but this is San Francisco. These teams played back in week 11. 49ers won that game 38-10. That was Colt McCoy at the starting quarterback spot. Line is at 14, so similar situation. I can't take it at that many points, but I'm not going to take the Cardinals either.
How do you pronounce this guy's name?
Who?
David Blau. David Blau. I'm taking David Blau. Connor's out, but I think that Arizona will keep it tight. Purdy's not that impressive anymore. I think he's got a lot of points, but that defense is giving up a lot of points last week.
Don't you think that the Cardinals have pretty much given DeAndre Hopkins isn't playing? Yeah. You said Connor's not playing.
Game, man, they're going to keep this one close.
I don't think they give a flying fuck.
Inside 14. David Blau's trying to get us.
They probably want to get blown out, so they'll get rid of their coach.
I don't like that guy. Cliff Kingsbury.
Yeah. So, all right. Next game is Los Angeles Chargers at the Denver Broncos. The Broncos are favored by 2.5. So the Chargers are in the playoffs. They would be either the 5th or 6th seed, depending on the outcome of the Ravens-Bengals game. But that is earlier, right?
So are they sitting everybody?
From what I read, it seemed like it was, for some reason, meaningful for them to get the 5 over the 6 seed. So they're playing for the 5th seed. But if the Ravens game, I guess if the Ravens win, then it doesn't matter.
Oh, so is that a 1 o'clock game? They'll already know before this game starts? That's bad scheduling too.
Yeah. So,
I just say,
I don't necessarily know
for playoffs.
I don't necessarily know why they care so much about being 5 or 6, but So I don't know. I mean, the Chargers have kind of been clicking because they have a lot of their guys healthy at this point. So I'm sure they don't want to jeopardize them. I'm certainly not going to take the Broncos.
It's a tough one.
But I don't know if you can take the Chargers under that circumstance either.
I mean, I would take the Chargers. I would like the Chargers if they're going to play guys.
Yeah,
if
for
they're
sure.
going to try to win the game. If not, then I would just stay away or go Denver because Russell Wilson will just look to finish the game on a high. And if he's up against a bunch of backups, I think he can at least win that game.
All right. So next game is the Dallas Cowboys at the Washington Commanders. Cowboys are favored by 7. They would win the division if the Eagles lost. They are playing at the same time. And they could get the number 1 seed if the Eagles and San Francisco lose. Sam Howell will be starting at quarterback for the Commanders. Jerry Jones seemed fairly adamant that they were going to play all their starters. So I was hoping it was going to be Carson Wentz, but I would still take the Cowboys in this spot.
This is the last week of the season, so we've had 18 of these, and no matter, I don't even know if it's going to change in this 2023 season, but I cannot get used to this Washington Commanders name.
I'm surprised. I've done so well with I thought the San Diego Chargers, the Washington Redskins, but I'm good.
I mean, I don't say Redskins that much, but I usually, because I'll see Washington and I'll just stop. I'll just call them Washington, right? I mean, the Washington football team is better than the Commanders. I don't know. I just
anyway,
don't like the franchise.
Do you have a pick on the game?
I would take Dallas. I think they're going to play their guys enough that they're going to, destroy Washington.
And I hope Washington regrets their decision to start Carson Wentz last week because they should have started Taylor Heineke.
Yeah, well, it's pretty
That guy gets no respect.
Ron Rivera had no idea that they could be eliminated from the playoffs last week with the Green Bay win, which happened. So they're out. So last week of the last game of the final week, the Detroit Lions are going to the Green Bay Packers. They are 4.5-point underdogs, but this line could go anywhere. You're really going to want to pay attention on Sunday to what happens to the action at 1 o'clock to see if this game has the meaning. Do you want to go over the scenarios?
Well, I think it's 4 o'clock. Basically Green Bay Packers win and they're in. Detroit Lions would need to win this game, but they need Seattle to lose, and Seattle plays before them, so they're going to know. So that's very disappointing to me for this game because I would have liked to have seen it play out for the playoffs. And
the Seattle game's at what time?
4:30.
Oh, okay.
Right? This is the night game on Sunday.
Okay.
So regardless, it's earlier. So, Detroit's going to know. I think they'll still play spoiler, but it's going to be somewhat defeating if they know when they take the field that they're not going to get into the playoffs. Yeah. I'm not sold on Green Bay being back. Aaron Rodgers' stat line in their 41-17 win over the Vikings last week was 159 yards and 1 touchdown. So I'm going to take the points and ride the Lions here.
Well, I want to see what happens. I've obviously liked the Lions, and I think you have to love the Lions coming through this year. But if this game means something for both teams, it's got a 3-point Green Bay Packers win written all over it. So if we're getting 4.5, I'm taking Detroit. Packers make the playoffs.
And then get out in the first round when they play San Francisco.
I like it.
All right, so that will do it for us for Week 18. It will do it for us for the 2022-23 season, but we will be back next year. Peace out.
See ya.
Wildcat.